Ever since the invention of the Great Firewall, China has placed heavy restrictions on its citizens' access to the internet. These restrictions on internet access led to China creating a multitude of government-supported alternatives to the search engines and social media sites we use today. However, the use of these websites by the populace of China has a negative impact on not just its population, as it also brings risk to minority groups in other countries around the world. My name is Eric Robichaud.
My name is Declan McCahan.
And I'm Rashid Mignon.
And we're here to discuss with you the risk posed in social media in China.
In our presentation today, we'll be discussing how social media is restricted in China. Then we're discussing how the information gap and how is this caused by these restrictions. In our subtopics, first, Rashid will be discussing how minority groups are reacting and how they're affected by these restrictions. Then I will be discussing how China censors social media and how they use other social medias as well. And then with Eric, he will discuss how other countries have possible solutions or responses that could be better or for worse. Now, Rashid will discuss the restrictions and how they affect minority groups.
Thank you, Declan. So restrictions in minority groups in China. The biggest atrocity of human rights abuses since Hitler's Nazi Germany is occurring right now in the 21st century in the second biggest economy in the world, China, in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, known to the Uyghur Muslims as East Turkestan. Officials stop Uyghur women on the streets and cut off parts of their dresses with scissors if they are found to be a bit too long. Officials even have a slogan for this: wear civilized, good-looking clothes, be beautiful, Romke people, resolutely oppose abnormal clothing and behavior. And this is just on the short list of human rights abuses. Most individuals are by now well acquainted with China's Muslim concentration camps in East Turkestan, where brutalities such as rape, physical and mental torture, electroshock interrogation, and female sterilization are a common practice. But most are in the dark of how such atrocities could exist in the 21st century. But these abuses are not just limited to just Muslims or ethnic groups, but individuals as well. Nobel Peace Prize winner of 2010, Liu Shangbo, received an 11-year prison sentence for inciting to overthrow power via posting the Charter 8 manifesto online, which he co-drafted. Liu simply called for the end of government corruption, demanded political reforms, and sought respect for the human rights of all Chinese citizens. Unfortunately, Liu died in custody. Every individual, organization, or company doing business in China is also held criminally liable for sending so-called harmful content as defined by China law, even if they are not based in China. For instance, in 2004, the American-based company Yahoo was forced to turn over information about Chinese journalist Shi Tao to the Chinese authorities. She sent an anonymous email to human rights organizations in the United States through his Yahoo account and received a 10-year prison sentence for it. Now, this becomes especially problematic when dealing with tech companies such as Huawei's imports into the United States or Tesla's exports to China. For this reason, former President Trump's administration banned Huawei from the United States, and China banned its government employees from purchasing Teslas or even allowing Teslas to enter government restricted areas due to Teslas having cameras that could potentially stream back to the United States. The underlying issue here is this: as our world, through social media, becomes more of a global village, information that is shared in one region is being held liable under the laws of another country.
China puts a lot of effort into censoring its people, but not letting information get in and information get out. As you heard from Rashid in the last slide, there are issues that China tries to keep secret. They do so in a multitude of ways. First, by canceling access to big media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter. Being more widely known, especially on the world scale, shows their dislike for outside input on their politics. Since doing this, the citizens have come up with alternatives to these platforms, such as creating Sine Weibo and WeChat, which are shown in the green text box above in the image. with the government being, which are heavily monitored and surveillance, as they are similar to Facebook and Twitter. With the government being fully involved in the making of these new platforms, it makes it possible for them to hire people called censors. As many as 1,000 employees are hired, according to the Zhang and Eng in 2011 interviewing anonymous citizens. They're like the internet police who monitor the internet in China, looking for sensitive information and getting rid of it. Therefore, China has essentially established a blockade of information on its people, as well as on-site views. They have influence on the people because they control what their citizens know by censoring local media, as well as how information is known to the outside world. This makes China seem ignorant to what is happening in the outside countries around them and even in their own cities. They're stuck in a limbo when they don't know what's in front of them and what is behind them.
With the knowledge of how China restricts social media in mind, we can compare its techniques to other countries' techniques to preventing unrest from growing in social media. Countries such as the United States and Russia opt into a more open approach to internet policy. This means the actions taken against unrest and negative viewpoints inside of social media by the government are limited, as social media is controlled by the private companies that own them. This does not make countries with open internet policy weak to social unrest, however, as some countries use other techniques to quell the outrage. For example, Russia uses the open internet policy to spread propaganda supporting the regime on sites such as VK, a Russian social media site. They do this by putting a direct link between Christianity and the regime, by attacking political leaders from other countries, and by creating anti-American or anti-other country advertisements. This limits the spread of anti-nationalistic propaganda and protests, making them less of a threat to the regime. There are some countries that take China's strict policing to the next level, however, such as Egypt during times of heavy unrest. During the 2011 Egyptian revolution, the government responded to the negative media attention by shutting down all internet access. This led to the revolution gaining more support, however, as the supporters already knew that there was something wrong with the government's overall actions, making the protest more favorable to the people. Now that we know more about other countries' actions and the possible consequences they faced, we can view theoretical other solutions that people have also recommended as less heavily regulated responses that still give the Chinese government some control over future protests. Some researchers suggest that countries can use an algorithm to forecast unrest and protest in social media. There have been multiple studies on how to use Twitter data through data mining to find the likelihood of a large gathering occurring. On its own, there would be no policing done. However, if you combine it with an increase in the law enforcement response time, you can control the protest when it happens and make sure that the potentially violent protests maintain peaceful.
Thank you, Eric. Restrictions to access is a difficult and hard issue to try and find a solution to, not only in China, but in other countries and scenarios as well. That's because governments have secrets that want to be kept hidden, and citizens are always having issues with censorship. Doesn't matter if it's time of war or peace. This is why we came up with one simple, maybe strong, maybe common, but strong solution: bringing awareness. If we use campaigns on social media platforms that are less restrictive, such as Facebook's terms and conditions, then we can use better inform countries around China in an attempt to get information to Chinese citizens. To take this a step further, if more people are involved in this issue, then we create seminars to better explain why and how this is an issue, similar to how we're discussing it to you. This benefits them as we show how harmful these restrictions are to its people, as it harms their sense of individual freedom itself. With the increase of awareness, we can better influence organizations that are such as the Geneva Convention, who work for international law for humanitarian treatment. They are one of the bigger organizations we found who have created an impact on social awareness, and we feel they will have better future generations.
If our solutions are supported and we are able to make a significant impact on China's social media restrictions, China's population would not only gain the aforementioned sense of freedom, as its relationship with the rest of the world would gain the country long-term benefits. When the information gap shrinks, China's citizens will become more educated on the world around them, allowing for them to know more about the government's actions against minorities, like the aforementioned Muslim concentration camps, which are currently being blindly supported. This would also cause nationalism to decline, which would allow the citizens to become more open to minorities, which could diminish the blind support of the camps and lead to a more welcoming community in China. These benefits would also carry over to the rest of the world, as when the information gap shrinks, the rest of the world will be able to respond to what's happening in China faster, leading to us knowing more about things like potential outbreaks like the coronavirus, which was first identified in Wuhan, China, and the Muslim concentration camps, which the outside world only first learned about from Google Maps images. Nationalism declining would also allow for international trade and immigration to increase to and from China, bolstering trade as fear of cameras in products will decline.
Thank you, Eric. Now, these are very novel issues with large implications, and the social lag has yet to be fully understood. We still need to know just how many people are actually affected. As more information is revealed, it only shows that the issue is even bigger and far more reaching than one could even imagine. Millions of people are actually being held in genocidal concentration camps, and the numbers are still growing. The entire country is essentially being held in a virtual prison. This issue is very solvable by simply bringing a strong and real awareness to the issue on a global scale. If not handled swiftly, the issue will grow and become one that is potentially unsolvable in time.
Thank you for coming to our presentation. Our works cited page is on the next slide. If you would like to look into more information, feel free to do so.
Thank you.